Hi, folks. This is Lee W. Mowen, the host of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast. I've been hosting my podcast on Anchor for some time now, and let me tell you why it's the easiest way to make a podcast. When you host with Anchor, you have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or phone. Anchor then distributes your podcast for you so others can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can even make some money with your podcast with no minimum listenership required. And best of all, it's 100% free. It truly is the one-stop shop for those looking to start a podcast. To start, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor.
12-ounce sports. Quench your sports thirst. Articles, live shows, and podcasts. Visit 12ozsportsradio.com. 12-ounce sports is your home for the best live talk shows, sports broadcasts, podcasts, and sports articles. You know you can catch 12-ounce sports live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, but now you can also watch live on Zingo TV. That's right, Zingo TV has added 12-ounce sports to their long list of channels. And now if you're on your smart TV, just download the app and flip to channel 761 to catch all the live 12-ounce sports programming plus replays. All you gotta do is download Zingo TV and use the promo code 120Z when signing up. It's that simple. Be sure to check out our latest blogs and podcasts as well at 12ozsportsradio.com. It's 12-ounce sports now live on Zingo TV, channel 761. It's episode 170 of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, and our special guest is Dominic Gussler, otherwise known as the Big Ragu in the roller derby circles. Big Ragu is the main announcer for Gem City Roller Derby, and today we're talking about the Big Ragu's announcing career, Dayton's local roller derby squad, local sports, and more in episode 170. Welcome to the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast with Lee W. Mowen. This is a weekly podcast covering all sports in Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio. From Lima to the Ohio River and northern Kentucky, from eastern Indiana to Madison County and all points in between, this is your source of local Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio sports. Visit the leewmowen.com/podcasts to find your favorite podcasting platform. Music created with the Splash app. Time for another episode with your host, Lee W. Mowen. It is episode 170. I got Dominic on the phone. Dominic, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad to finally get back with you and talk and stuff. The last time we really did any talking, you were actually at the Dayton Convention Center announcing with me.
That's right. That was my first ever stint into roller derby. First time I watched it with my own eyes, and it was a lot of fun. I had I had a great time, a lot of experience learned, and yeah, hopefully we get roller derby starting back soon.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that.
So, like I mentioned, Dominic's roller derby name is the Big Ragu. Where did you get that nickname from?
Well, going all the way back to like Laverne and Shirley, there was Carmine, the Big Ragusa on there, and he was Italian.
I see.
I'm half Italian. He was a boxer. I used to box. So there were a lot of similarities there. But I was at doing basic training, and we were doing the pugil stick competition, and I was dancing around and not. As the guy would swing, I would jump back and then smack him in the head. And Private Bearden saw that, and he happened to be from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he actually gave me that nickname. He goes, "Oh, man, you are the Big Ragu, doing that. And so I've been rocking that since, 1993 was when I was in basic training.
Really?
So,
wow.
yeah.
That's pretty cool on the nickname of it, because, roller derby is so special where I'm pretty sure all, if not most, of the athletes have a different name.
Oh, fact. Yeah, they're all over the spectrum. Lately, athletes have been using their actual names and stuff like that as they're slowly trying to transition into a more, recognizable as the actual sport that it is, and they want to be taken as serious as possible. And sometimes you do come across certain names that you're like, that's not made for TV. So you might say half the name or even a quarter of the name, or just they're flying around the track. Look at them go, and avoiding that name entirely.
You get an A for creativity, but we can't say it over TV. So
Exactly.
It's something I never thought about, but I think that's some of the basic charm into roller derby, and we're definitely going to touch up on that during this episode. So I like to begin. Dominic, where are you from?
Started out in Columbus, Ohio, and we moved very early. I was around 3 months old. My parents, they didn't get along. So we moved to Chicago, which is where my mother's family's from. And we lived in Little Italy and Little Italy, Chicago, and then moved out a little bit to the suburbs in Berwyn, and somehow managed to move back to Ohio out of all that.
When'd you come back to Ohio?
Came back, I think I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So the first 8 years I was in Chicago, and then after that moved back to just south suburb of Columbus, Grove City, and was there for until I was about 19 when I went into the Army.
When did you decide that you like to get into announcing?
I think that happened. I got out of the military, and I was me and a friend. We were actually managing a bar in Grove City, and I started DJing, and seeing that effect that it had on people and how you could control the mood and how everybody was and how they felt. And then it actually, when I started working with the county, when I started working there and doing the graduations and the parties and things like that, and maybe even before that with my YouTube channel, with all the talking and going through all of that, I was like, I would do the round by rounds. I would watch boxing fights because that's what I initially started in. And I would talk about what was happening during the fights and things like that. And then I was like, man, I would love to be the ring announcer, that Michael Buffer type of role, to be able to go out there and address and hype up and get people excited about what was happening.
And I think you did a great job with the Gem City Roller Derby. I mean, the action itself is very, intense, and it gets the fans involved. But I think you did a nice job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is to make it exciting, to throw in, great references that you think people are going to get. So you got to stay up on the older references and the newer references and stuff like that to kind of relate things to, and to be able to describe what's actually happening on the track for people so that they have a better understanding, obviously, of the sport. Because if you're not around Derby, when you first see it, it can definitely be a little bit confusing, at least for maybe the first bout or maybe even the second bout when you're watching it.
I think personally for me, I did a lot of studying up on roller derby before my first announcing bit, and I think I finally, felt 100% comfortable. Like there was like a minute to go in the fourth. It's like, oh, and now it's over. Great, but yeah, it's just roller derby is such a great sport, and I wish more people knew about it. Can you tell me how you got into Gem City Roller Derby?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I had, referencing back to the YouTube and the videos and everything, and I had been announcing our talent shows and stuff at school, and all that. My brother-in-law actually went to see a Gem City bout back when they played at the Orbit Fun Center.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in pretty much immediately after that bout, and he ran into the house and he looked at me and he said, "Dude, you need to be their announcer." And I'm like, what are you talking about? What's going on here? He goes, "No, you've got to see it." And I'm like, fine. So they happened to have another bout a month later. So I went and saw the bout, and we were sitting in what would be turn 2. And I just started announcing or talking about what I was witnessing on the track. Now, being from Chicago, the roller derby was massive there, all the way up until the 70s, and then with the gas crisis and all that, it kind of faded away. But I definitely remember watching it, and it was massive in Chicago. So I kind of knew the rules, you know what I mean? So I had that, and I did brush up like any good announcer or anybody that's going to do anything. You learn about the sport before you announce it. And I commend you for that. When you did that, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So to be able to go out and do that. So I started calling that in the corner. And then I noticed that the people that were at the bout were no longer listening to the announcer that they had, but their chairs started turning in a little bit more toward me. And we were going through, all of the stuff, and, I was getting good feedback and everything like that. And they're like, "Wow, we kind of understand it more now," if that makes sense. 'Cause it was only me just dabbling with it then. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to contact Gem City, and I emailed them, and Outer Spacey was the first skater that I had actually had any contact with Gem City. And they said, "You know what, come on out. We'll give you a tryout. And we'll see how things work out." So I typed up a thing as if I was going through my initial introductions, ladies and gentlemen at the time, and we're going through, the Orbit Fun Center and Gem City Roller Derby would like to welcome you. I went through that whole spiel over the loudspeakers. And as I was doing that at the practice, I noticed a lot of the skaters just stopped skating, and they were staring up at the speakers. And a couple of them came over and they go, "Was that you?" And I said, "Yeah, that was me." And they said a couple other names, because it sounded like the voice of this person, coming through. And Spacey came over and they were like, "Yeah, you're going to be our announcer." And that was in July of 2013. So I've been there ever since.
Very impressive. I mean, like I mentioned, it was fun working with you, and I did do the research, but I don't know, how well I did. I think for me, announcing roller derby is a lot different than announcing Never Sports, just because you're almost broadcasting what's happening, whereas
Yes,
you do that. I know someone who did that, and they're no longer allowed to work there. But yeah, whereas other sports, you're just like, you can say the exciting things. Here's substitutions coming in, batting order, everything like that. But with roller derby, I think there's a lot more creativity that allows that you can allow to kind of add to the atmosphere. It was definitely an experience for me, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the great thing about it is I try to tell people, your play-by-play, your color commentary, and you're actually the straight guy a lot of times, the straight person, the whole time you're doing it. And it's got to be quick, because the pace of derby is quick. I mean, it's a sprint. That's what a jam is. When they call a jam, which is that 2-minute time frame that they go around or can skate up to, that jam is really in reference to a sprint. So everything, the frenetic pace of it, the fact that the players, the athletes that are on the track are both doing offense and defense, and you want to see that and let people know and draw their attention to certain things. Because a lot of times you'll notice, or I have noticed over the years, people will start focusing on just the jammers, which are the ones with the stars that score the points for the teams, flying around and passing people, and they're only watching them. But that's not where the action is. It's really in that pack. and you can see, the walls being formed, triangles, being set up and everything for defensive things to set up to try and hold back the other team's jammer. You'll see great blocks that come flying in, just leveling someone. And it's really, you want people to see all of that. And if I can direct your attention to that, you can start picking it up faster, because it is a fast sport. And if you're not paying attention, you miss so much stuff.
Like you mentioned, though, jammers do get the points, but at the same time, it's protecting the jammers in the middle of that pack. So it's definitely something that you can't just be focused on one thing. You have to be focused on the entire track.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the big thing about it is it's always going on. And for them on there as well, because you're constantly playing offense and defense. That's one of the special things about Derby that comes through with everything, is that a good defensive play is going to open up their jammer and allow them to get through and pass those other individual, the opposing team members. Mm-hmm. And as they pass those skaters, they're going to be collecting those points and gathering it up, ultimately to win.
Take me through what a person that's never seen roller derby can expect out of a normal home bout with Gem City.
Well, don't watch anything from the 70s.
Okay. Okay.
So you're gonna have to get back to, it's the when we're looking at it now, it's evolved from the bank track. They still have them, but it's a flat track now. So it's not going to be banked. So you're going to come out and you're going to go, oh, this is different than what I thought it might be. So you're going to look and you're going to see the athletes coming on to the track, and you're going to witness. It's really hard to, when you start talking about Derby, to break it down real easy. But each team, you're going to see their, and it is a team. When I say team, I mean team beyond just a regular. They're very connected, and they're going to go out. You're going to have the 5 skaters. The 5 athletes are going to go out there. 4 of them are your blockers. 1 of them's the jammer. The captain of the defense, I would call the pivot, and they're the ones that have the stripe on their head. So when you come out there, watch what the pivot is doing, because they're going to be constantly communicating with the defense, telling them what to set up, where to move, where to go in order to try and block the other team's jammer. You're going to see ridiculous speed, because now Gem City is one of the top teams in the world. When I started, Gem City was ranked like 1,009 in the world, and now they're, at the last time I checked, we were at 69. So we're up with the elite now, and you're going to see a crazy fast pace. You're going to see amazing athleticism. And when, we think about jumping up and down, right? Mm-hmm. But imagine jumping up and down, getting hit in midair, and landing. Only you have skates on doing it. It's mind blowing, the athleticism that you would see at one of those bouts. So I would highly recommend anybody, when Derby does come back, when sports come back, it would definitely be something to brush up on first, so you're not completely clueless before you go in. But when you go, you're gonna see a lot of incredible action. You're going to see great sportsmanship. I mean, you're going to see the wonderful family atmosphere, and you can take anybody to any of these bouts, be it your grandmother or your 3-year-old. And I have full confidence when you're watching that. The sportsmanship is amazing at those bouts.
You mentioning how they jump up and get hit, and I'm just thinking of that concrete floor at the Dayton Convention Center. I was like,
yeah.
I started hurting just when you said that, because I remembered what the convention center floor was like. But
fact, yeah, and a majority of the bouts are on that polished concrete floors, or they might be on a roller derby rink, with the wooden floors if you're lucky. But no matter how you cut it, when you go down and you're going down on that hard surface. And like I said, these are conditioned athletes that they take those bumps. They've learned how to fall correctly, but unfortunately, a lot of times when you take those big hits, you don't get to land exactly how you'd want, but they're able to get up and they're able to continue on. And I don't try to joke at it or make light, but when I do say, if that happened to me, I would get up, I would crawl off, and then I would just go home. I don't think I'm lying about that anymore, because the dedication you have to have, that heart that you have to get up to be able to do that again is very impressive.
Yeah, yours truly, I think I'd just be lying there. I wouldn't get up. I was like, I'm done. But yeah, definitely how they have to condition themselves, it's nothing short of, strong. It's amazing how fit you have to be a roller derby athlete.
Yeah, they recently with the Women's Flat Track Derby Association, or I call it WIFTA, but they don't like you to shorten up their name.
Yeah.
But with them, they recently passed. It used to be 25 laps in 5 minutes around the track to even qualify to be able to start training, really, to get the hits in and stuff with your teammates. They bumped it up to 27 laps in 5 minutes, which is a mile.
Wow.
So when they're going around, and it's not straight, they're going around all of those turns, 4 turns every lap. So to be able to do that, you're humming, you're going at a really good clip, and to maintain that and the athletic endurance that you have just to be able to do that, one, is incredible. 2, you're doing that in 2 30-minute halves in a bout or a game, however they want to call it. And you have to, and you're still doing that. So you're looking at basically every bout is a marathon, and you're getting hit. You're taking elbows, not flagrant. This isn't, fly, although that does happen. But, you're taking those hits, those falls onto the concrete, but you're still getting up and you're still doing that. So, running a marathon's great, but if you're running it and then occasionally get whacked with a ball bat and still able to make it in your time, that'd be pretty awesome to see.
I think the biggest thing about this too is these athletes don't get paid. They have lives outside roller derby, but yet they're able to come in and they're just. I think that's the most impressive thing about it.
Yeah, well, that is derby. It's skater owned. It's skater driven. They're nonprofit, things. It runs by the. That old cliche, it's the blood, the sweat, the tears of the volunteers and the skaters themselves. That's what makes derby successful in that. And that's what creates that true family environment when you're talking about those teams. It's just, the support systems that they have built in for everybody. And to do that, to keep it running, to keep it functional, to constantly be looking for places to have your bouts or, to have your games at is, it's a big effort for everybody. And then you mentioned, they're not getting paid for this, at least not a majority of the teams. The giant teams, like if you're looking at Victoria, or if you're looking at the top teams like Gotham out of New York, they have big time sponsors that actually sponsor them. So they do get a little bit of pocket change, but nobody's doing it as their full-time job. And we have college professors on the team. We have many individuals that are in the military, officers in the military. We have, teachers. We have mothers, at home. We have everybody on that team. It's great.
And like you mentioned, just that's amazing. And also the staff, they're not paid as well. You do it out of the goodness of your heart. Yeah,
and for a time there, I had to have at least one slice of pizza. I think I had that in a contract somewhere. At the after party, I need at least one slice of pizza, and I'd be happy. Yeah, exactly. Doing it, people would always ask me, well, shouldn't you ask to be paid? And a lot of that, and I'm like, yeah, I know I'm devoting a lot of my time to that, because in one day I'm showing up an hour to maybe an hour and a half earlier than the bouts are. And sometimes I'm doing 2 or 3 bouts in a day. So you're looking at maybe a 9-hour day, 10-hour day in there for basically nothing. But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I wanted, and I don't want to come off as conceited or anything like that. I'm blessed to be able to announce and to do those things. As you know, anytime a team is willing to let you speak for them, it's an absolutely awesome thing to have happen. So when I'm going there, I've always wanted to be able to put them in as a professional and successful light as I can. So, and I've always felt there's very few people when I'm announcing or doing stuff, I think I do an extremely good job at that. I have maybe I have a high opinion of myself, but I really wanted to bring that to Gem City, and I wanted them to have that to go along with their play. So I think, professional sound, professional players, the whole thing kind of really ties it all together.
And that's part of the reason why Gem City was, what'd you say, in the thousands at one point, and now they're 69th in the country?
69th in the world.
In the world. Wow.
In the world. Yeah, it's the fastest growing sport in the world, roller derby. There's over 41 countries actively participating in derby. There's over 1,400 leagues around the world that are doing it. And in fact, it was up to replace one of the wrestling in the 2020 Olympics. But they decided, wrestling was like the original Olympic sport. So they're holding off on bringing roller derby in, but it is definitely at the doorstep of actually being a recognized Olympic sport. So we're very, very excited about that. And yeah, when they started off at 1,009, when they were ranked in the thousands, they weren't, it takes that dedication, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that got into derby a long time ago, when it started coming back in the early 2000s, it was more of that, I don't want to say glitz and glamour kind of look, the fishnet stockings, all the glitter, kind of stuff like that. And it was just like, oh, we play derby. And it's like, there was a shift. And now you've got the athletes are cross training, and they're lifting all the weights, and they're doing the going out and running marathons on the side of doing everything. So it's really has, I watched that flip, and it really happened when it went from the 25 laps to the 27 laps, because you had some skaters that were barely making the 25, but definitely weren't going to make the 27 unless they actually dedicated themselves. And that dedication, I think, has elevated what we're seeing now when we're watching a roller derby game.
Let's talk more about Dayton's roller derby team. Mm-hmm. What can you say about the Gem City roller derby family?
Oh, it is absolutely amazing. I couldn't think of a better group to be around with. It's one of the first, that Gem City family. They do everything for each other. If some of them may go on a 9-month injury, mm-hmm. that's they get pregnant and have a kid. Mm-hmm. So they go on their 9-month injury, and they organize a food thing. Who's going to make dinner for them that day? And they plan it out for a couple weeks in that time, and take care of each other. And there's like, if you need any help with anything, They do their own help page for people. They're always checking, especially now in these times, checking on each other's mental health and how they're doing with that. I couldn't think of a better group of people to be associated with, just on a personal or a mental, level with them. They do so much for each other. It's really it's a pleasure to do it with them and to be around them. The positivity, like I said, it's a support group. It's a crafting group, a study group, any positive group you can think of. That's Gem City.
It sounds like one roller derby family to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not to put you on the spot, but for those that don't know anyone on the team, give me some athletes that are, you can argue, some of the biggest names for Gem City.
For Gem City? Mm-hmm. Supersonic, Lexical Dexterity, or LD, Outer Spacey, Archangel Anarchy, Doity Die, Blitzkrieg Bex, Terra Hole in You, Honey Basher, Florida Man, Beast Mode.
Wait.
Wheels.
Did you say Florida Man?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. When that happened, I was just like, oh, I get to say, oh, and there goes Florida Man just flying out of bounds, or something like that. Florida Man getting another penalty, needs to get their life together. Yeah.
You said Florida Man. I'm not tripping. That's great.
I definitely said Florida Man. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I heard Florida Man's like, wait, what?
Well, that's the thing. We're talking about. You had mentioned earlier. You're talking about names and all those unique names that you were bringing up. That are a part of the Derby. And yeah, you get to see some of those great ones. I mean, like Hot Wheels Houlihan. Instead of Hot Lips. They got these. Yeah, exactly. Heartless Glitch. Harrowing Banshee, Dalmer Doll, and Slayer Cub, Genghis, Shyster. So many awesome names. That Murder Maid, Debonatrix. You start thinking these are all Gem City skaters, by the way. So,
I think there was one I remember from the bout I did. I'll Be Back. Was that one?
I'll Be Back. Absolutely, yeah. Yep. She's with Gem City. Yep, great person.
How about some names off the track? I mean, I mentioned yours is the Big Ragu, and you shared the story. But the refs, I think, have names. I think the cameraman has a name.
Oh, you have like Snack Attack. You have B Naughty. You have some of the other. We used to have one that was Karma Zabi. I don't want to say the whole name,
Yeah.
And back to those names where you only want to say half of them. And yeah, there Will Tweeton is another one I really enjoyed there. Stray Taco. It's just some that you just shake your head at. 50 Shades of Cray, I believe, is another one. Really cool.
I like that one.
So yeah, just great names.
My derby name was Loudmouth O'Fallon, and I picked that just because it's the closest. See, I wanted to get in the spirit of roller derby where everyone
Absolutely.
had a really cool name, but I couldn't really think of anything. Then I just start thinking Fallon kind of rhymes with my last name.
Yeah.
I think I did that because I used my middle initial and everything. Loudmouth, because I'm kind of a loud mouth. So I do a lot with my voice, so that's why I kind of picked it. It's not the most clever, and it's not the most creative by any means, but I was proud of it. I was like, yay.
Oh, no, I enjoyed it very much. And, well, if we're honest, there's when you hear the Big Ragu, there's a lot of people out there that try to have that moniker. That go around and they say it. I think there's another guy in Dayton that actually has been going by the Big Ragu since the early 2000s or something like that. But he's a local guy. He eats a lot of food or something and critiques food and things like that and goes to restaurants. And I'm eventually going to challenge him to a meatball cook-off, and we'll see whose balls are better. And then
You just
when
said
I
that
win
on the podcast.
And then when I win, when my meatballs are the best, you'll know.
That better be live streamed. If you need a broadcaster for the meatball cook-off, I'm your man.
That's what I'm talking about right there. We need to set that up.
You mentioned your YouTube channel. I mean, nowadays you can stream live on YouTube, and you can.
Yeah.
If you get a really nice setup, that'd be really fun.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about doing. I've recently just started getting back into it. I probably haven't put out a video in a month though, but I was trying to get back into doing some of the upcoming fights that are happening and stuff. And like I said, at one time, I think I still am a YouTube partner, a Google partner, because I've got a little over 4,000 subscribers to it. So at one time I was doing pretty well with it. And it let me go to the University of Chicago, to write about the fights that were happening there and things like that. So, and yeah, getting up to the new speed of things with that, I'm looking forward to. I would like to, kind of do similar to what you're doing with the podcasts and getting people on talking about things and just going over stuff. So,
yeah, I think you'd be a great podcaster. I mean, for me, I started this mainly because I wanted more local sports talk, and that's kind of why I did it. Podcasting is a lot of fun. I mean, especially during the quarantine, I've talked to so many great people and learned their stories, and I love it. There's I can't pick a favorite interview because all of them have been great.
That's awesome. I mean, you've been doing this now. What is it? 3 seasons?
Yeah.
And 170 episodes?
This is 170, and Wednesday, it's 3 years that I've done the podcast, and I kicked myself just because I could have done this podcast a long time ago, but I never did. So,
well, yeah, I've had, I get a lot of the people commenting on my videos on YouTube, and they'll say things like, "Why aren't you doing a podcast?" I'm like, people want to listen to me.
Yeah.
It's always that, again, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, the people are definitely going to listen to me. It's just that when you're talking about stuff and you're talking about Dayton sports, something that should be talked about around this area, that's a great thing to do. Yeah.
I mean, I tried picking out something that not everyone's going to do. I mean, there's tons of Cincinnati sports podcasts, but there's not really one that talks about Dayton. And since I cover the two areas, there you go. So,
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I finally got started with Cincinnati people interviews during the quarantine. But, yeah, I always thought Dayton sports weren't talked about as much. And, yeah, that's kind of why I did it. But I definitely listen to your podcast.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. So get to it.
You're right.
Get to it right now. No, actually not right now. We're doing an interview.
Yeah. We'll wait until after this. I'll get with you and you'll help me.
Absolutely.
I hope.
I'll do the best I can.
Awesome.
So let's get back to other names. What are some of your favorite names that you gotten to announce that aren't necessarily for Gem City, but just anyone you can remember that always puts a smile on your face?
Anytime I get to say anything that ends in boom. So like deja boom, deja boom, and you can get that echoing thing over everything. There was a skater for Ohio called Sarah Problem Officer. I love that.
That's great.
Just, Flux Decapitator, Slamuel L. Jackson.
I love that.
Yeah. You have like Lady Trample, obviously Scald Eagle, some of the big names, Rosie Peacock, Optimus Grime. That's a men's skater. moan a lot. I know, but it's just for me, Harrowing Banshee. I love those names that make you think a little bit, but once you've got it, kind of deal.
Now,
So,
who are some of the teams that Gem City battles?
Well, every season it might change a little bit, but recently Gem City's played against Ohio. Ohio Roller Derby played against Cincinnati. Roller Derby beat both of them. So, Gem City is the number one team in Ohio, in my opinion, for right now.
I did wonder if Gem City battled with the Black, pretty sure it's the Black Sheep.
For Cincinnati.
Yeah, I should know this. They follow me on Twitter. So
it was a really, there things happen. There might have been a falling out there a long, long time ago, but so long ago that pretty much anybody that was involved in whatever, I don't know what it was. I just know that they weren't playing each other. And I said, why are they, why is this not happening? We're only 40 minutes away, 50 minutes away. This should be a no-brainer, almost like why don't we have a home and home type of thing every season? That could be 2 bouts right there. And then with Ohio, well, the problem is I guess, with the way the ranking systems are, it didn't make sense to have them playing because they were down so low in the rankings. So it actually hurt Ohio or Cincinnati to actually play them. So they would have had to beat Gem City by like 500 points in order to gain any rankings with the way the women's flat track does their scoring. So once Gem City stepped up and it got a little closer in rankings, then it made it more feasible for them to actually play. So that really drives a lot of the scheduling anymore. As Gem City climbs up, there's a team over in Toronto that they'll play. So they'll come down. I think it's Queen City from Toronto. There's obviously Ohio, Cincinnati. Akron's team is starting to step up a little bit. So we could see a little more action with that. So as far as Derby City, which is down in Kentucky, go figure, right? Derby City, it's a great announcers there. I loved announcing down there. That was a big turnaround for Gem City with that win. So yeah,
I
think I got it.
I think Richmond still has the Dire Skates, if I remember right.
Yes. Dire Skates is there. You have you've got teams all over that place, and then you have in Michigan, you got like the Battle Creek Serial Killers. Obviously Detroit has a huge team there, very highly ranked. So high, they're probably not really going to play us for a while. Naptown, which is in Indianapolis. Really good skaters there. You have Central Ohio Roller Derby, Cord. You've got Glass City. I mean, there were so many teams that we used to play that we don't play as often now because as we've moved up in the rankings, the higher you get, the harder it is really to schedule like a sanctioned bout with someone. And you need to have at least 5 of those a season in order to maintain your ranking. So we've had to expand just a little bit wider, Garden State, which is New Jersey, so there's been some traveling going on now where Gem City will go to Wisconsin for a tournament, in order to get those bouts in against sanctioned teams that are high enough to either move us up really good or we don't get knocked down that much if we do lose, kind of deal.
Now, let me ask you about your favorite bouts that you've got to announce. Give me some of your favorite moments or favorite memories while announcing with Gem City.
I think the first one was probably the first bout I ever really announced for Gem City. That was the Battle Creek Serial Killers so long ago. And DATV was actually there to film the bout. They taped 2 extra microphones onto my microphone And I'm like, this is my first bout ever. So, it was kind of like oh, wow, I'm really on the spot. I need to make sure I get this right. And it's my first bout. The second bout that really came to mind was I had just mentioned earlier with Derby City. And Derby City had previously beat Gem City by, I don't know, 300 points or something like that a season prior. But there was like this commitment. Like Gem City said, this is it. We're going to start meeting extra. We're going to train extra days. We're going to practice more than we ever have before. And I saw this crazy change. And I was like, I'm going down to Derby City with you guys. Went down there. I was lucky enough to be able to announce the bout with their announcers. And Gem City pulled that off. And that was like, at the time, that was the biggest win for Gem City in their history. And that was absolutely amazing to be a part of that. Later that season, Gem City went and did the River Valley Riot down in St. Clairsville, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And they won. It was the first tournament Gem City had been entered in, and they won. And and it was the first tournament I ever got to announce in. And I was so geeked to even just be able to announce. And their head announcer said, I'm going to let you announce every bout Gem City's in. So I got to announce their first bout, the semifinal bout, and then the championship bout. So I'm like, wow, I just love that tournament and them winning. And that was like probably one of my favorite memories of announcing for Gem City. And then obviously Gem City goes to Ohio on Ohio's home turf just this past season. And I get to announce, and I had announced previously for Ohio for like a season in the past. So to be able to be there and know everybody, but know the gravity of that game and how huge it was, and to be able to call that game and for Gem City to win that bout was, it was like mind blowing. I was so geeked to be able to be a part of that and to share that experience with those athletes for all the work that they've done for it to actually really show up and pay off like that. So that was probably, those are like the top 3 or maybe 4 bouts that I can remember that I just loved.
Now, what are some of your favorite venues you got to announce from?
Well, I mean, the Hare Arena, nothing will beat. I really have a soft spot for, Hare Arena, the Ball Arena, when I was in there, because that's kind of like where I started, and doing that, I really enjoyed that. I liked announcing. There's a couple places, trying to think of right now that I've been to. The Dayton Convention Center, if I haven't already mentioned that, that's a really nice place, but I don't know, it can seem a little cold, with because you're so spread out, because it's such a massive area. I like, the walls to be just a little bit closer, to keep that sound, to keep that, so things don't get lost in there, but I still like it. Don't get me wrong. I'd probably say that's some of the best. And, the Circle, when you go to Ohio State Fair, the fairgrounds there, mm-hmm. and they're in that, the circular building that's in there, like that iconic circular building there, and announcing in there with like Kent Smith, who's an Ohio representative, elected official, and I get to, announcing there. I really enjoyed that place as well.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Hare Arena. I have a soft spot with it because the last mm-hmm. 2 hockey teams in town played there, and I was their broadcaster. I think Gem City had bouts during some Demons and maybe even a Demolition game here or there. It was,
yep.
And I think, pretty sure it was Demons, where I think Demons and Gem City tried, where you come to the bout and then stay for hockey.
Yep. Yeah, we were, cross promotion. Me and Bones used to hang out, man.
Bones.
Bones would show up at our bouts and everything, and it was just a great thing. I really enjoyed them having the hockey there and everything. And I think that's probably one of the things I miss with Dayton right now is, we had, when you talk about the hockey, but we also had the arena football as well.
Yeah.
With the Silverbacks, and then I forget what the other team was. Was that who was after the Silverbacks?
Sharks. I was their voice for both seasons.
And a long time ago, I played for the Columbus Sharks semi-pro football league, but man, that was a long time ago.
It's funny you mentioned indoor football because I miss broadcasting it. That was a lot of fun to call. I mean, the first year was more successful, but yeah, I can tell you this.
Great quarterback.
Oh yeah, Tommy Smith, I think. First name was Tommy, I know that, but he was from Eaton and he played his college ball in Indiana. So that was, hey, I know where you're from. I live near there. So that always made me happy, but. Yeah, it's sad to think that Hare Arena is in the state that it's in. It's never going to be what it was, and two, who knows if we ever get any new arena like that. I personally hope we do, but
that's the big hope, right? Because if we're talking Dayton sports and around that area, we've got to have that type of arena. Now I know we have is it Trent Arena?
Yeah, there's the Trent Arena in Kettering, which, I mean, they're never going to put in hockey there. That's...
Yeah. So it's like you really need... I mean, that's such a great sport to have, to have people come to and to be around. And if you got hockey, you can do the football and all that as well. And just so much other things. I mean, Hera brought so much to the community with that, to see that go away was a real shame.
It's still heartbreaking. I mean, I don't know how if you've been catching up with Hare Arena, but just it's bad. The tornadoes certainly didn't help, but just it's really bad, and it breaks my heart.
I mean, we could look up and see 1987 written on some of the ceiling tiles. So, that gave the character. It gave a character.
Absolutely. I wonder if the Dayton Demons championship ceiling tile is still in the pub because all of us signed it after the cup came home, and the Demons were in Danbury for Game 5, and I was broadcasting a Sharks game, and I can just remember that's the quickest I ever packed up my broadcasting gear, and I went down to the pub, and it was like 9-2 Dayton, and it's like, we're going to win the cup. That was a great night. That was a great night.
Yeah, that was the thing. Dayton was really getting on that. Now we have the Dayton Dragons.
Yep.
That's a great thing when we're talking about the Dayton sports and stuff in that stadium, that Fifth Third Field. They still calling it Fifth Third Field?
Day Air Paul Park. It's weird. It's
kind of like being from Chicago. It's the Sears Tower. I don't care what they call it now. I'm always going to call it the Sears Tower. I can look at the new name, but I'll probably always call it the Sears Tower.
That's a solid point. It was Fifth Third Field for 20 years. It's
for 20 years. Yeah. I mean, I didn't believe people when they told me. They were like, "No, you got to go to a Dayton Dragons game. It's a single A ball club." I said, "It's a single A ball club." Or said single A ball club. I said, "Okay, fine." And I went out there, and the fans there are some of the best fans I've ever seen at any sporting event that I've ever been to. And it's absolutely awesome. The interaction they have with the crowds, everything they do there, it makes you want to go again. It's reasonably priced. It's not too hard to find parking. I didn't say it was easy. I just said it wasn't too hard.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get there pretty early if you don't want to pay.
That's right. Exactly. If you don't want to pay, you got to get there a little early, but that's the fun of finding a spot, so you don't have to pay. So you won there, save $10, and you get to go in and spend that on a thing of nachos. So,
yeah. I mean, what always impresses me with the Dragons is just how much they stand with their customer service slogan, and it's always amazing how well the Dragons do, and they're on the lowest part of the minor league baseball chain, low A, whereas they beaten teams for their sellout streak that are in the professionals. I mean, Portland Trail Blazers, Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, they got the record, right?
Yep.
I mean, they've sold out over 10,000 games in a row or something like that. And even when you show up, while you know those tickets were just purchased, they actually do have quite a few fans in the stands at every game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's not like those fake sellouts that you see and half the stand is open. I mean, when you go there, you better not show up late thinking you're going to get a really good seat, because that's not happening.
Exactly. It's amazing. We have this in our backyard, and I think if someone wanted to invest in a team in Dayton, Ohio, I mean, I don't want to say follow exactly what the Dragons are doing, but if you go by that same principle, there's no reason you can't have success in Dayton.
No, none at all. And I think it's really just getting people out there, getting to see the stuff. And that's, like and I always turn it back to Derby. I've had friends, that, I'm always trying to get people to come out to the bouts. Mm. And they're like, really? Women's sports? I said, you need to get that and take that completely out of your head. Because when you see how athletic, how fast, how hard the hits can be, the skill that you have to do the stuff that they do, like jumping to apex when they're jumping a corner and they're in the air and they're flying through the air 7, 8, 9 feet, and they're upwards of almost 3 feet high off of skates, and you see this happen and you're just like, oh my, this could make any highlight reel that you ever see, and to try and get people out there to support, and get out of the mind that it's women's athletics. It's athletics. Bottom line, that's all it is they're every bit. I look at them and go, if you went and saw a baseball game, you saw less athleticism at a baseball game than you would if you saw Derby.
Yeah,
if you saw, it's just
that's one thing I can't stand when people say, "Oh, it's just women's sports." Women can play sports too. I mean, it's not just the volleyball shorts or anything. Women play sports, and they're damn good at sports. I love 100%. I love announcing. It doesn't matter what sport it is, and I hope one day Ohio is strong enough that they can have girls ice hockey. But problem is, there's not too many schools that have ice hockey full stop, so that might not be happening. But have you been following along with girls wrestling? I mean,
yeah, I've seen where it's slowly starting to take hold, slowly starting to build, much like, any of the sports. When you look at women's Olympic boxing, didn't really happen until I think it was 2012. Or was it? So that's just started coming up. Women's MMA, when you watch that's just started coming up. The finally realizing, hey, they can compete. This isn't, there shouldn't be a box that anyone fits in. If you want to do it, especially when it comes to anything athletic. I mean, to think that a high school athlete couldn't wrestle, that's, it's like the only thing I could ever think of, is, again, you always try and go with stereotypes. And they want to try and follow a mold that's been set. But, women have been breaking that mold over and over and over again. And it's a great thing to see. And I'm all for it. I think that they should have more of that availability and stuff if they want to do it.
I totally agree. I mean, I could also mention, going back to ice hockey and high school level, there were some teams from, Centerville had a female forward, and she did fine. I mean, I think it was her first year skating, and, she got comfortable as the season went on. So definitely admire her for that. There was I forget which Columbus team had a female defender, but she was well deserving of the first pairing for defenders. So definitely that was a lot of fun to watch. There was a female goalie. She didn't get to play in the game I got to broadcast for Springboro, but she was there. That's really cool. But yeah, I mean, I get tired of the old trope of, women, go in the kitchen, make me a sandwich. No. Women can play sports, and you know what? I enjoy announcing or broadcasting or talking about any sport, and I don't care who plays it.
Anything, especially when you're talking sports, physical, it's going to be awesome. Watch it,
Absolutely.
And when they're doing stuff, I look at it, and they're on my best day. Some of the things that they're doing out there, I couldn't do. I tried to skate backwards. I was not good at it. It's terrible. And they can skate backwards, skate around people, get hit while doing it, still not fall down, pirouette off of a hit, absorb that energy and spin out of it, and then turn around and fly around that track. And they're doing this at 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 miles an hour, sometimes faster. Whew.
Dominic, I can't skate forward, so they have me beat there. I tried it once, and that's all I'm good for a lifetime. Never have to try that again. But I'd like to ask another question before I get into this topic. It's something that
Sure.
You and I definitely talked about. But first off, do you see sports returning anytime soon?
This year, I would probably say no. I mean, we look at the high school sports, they're kind of trying, but, and there's some college leagues already that have just said, yeah, it's not going to happen. I think the Big Ten has already moved to they're just going to do in-conference games. So
yeah, I saw that. There's a Division III school, Kenyon, in Northeast Ohio. They said no sports. I mean, Sinclair, when this first started, they said no sports at all until 2021-22.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're just being smart, you're being I would rather be over precautious on some things than to not be as, you know what I mean? I would rather have to go, oh, well, we didn't have to be that preventative, as opposed to we should have been more preventative. Because, I mean, yeah, we're looking at a very short window if we're talking high school or college, for their careers, in that sport and stuff. But at the same time, you want to keep your health. And we don't, this with the coronavirus and everything, it's too new for us to really know all the details, what are lasting effects, all that kind of stuff. It's just too new, and it's something I wouldn't want to risk on them. And especially when you're talking about, now if it's golf, yeah, okay, you could probably get away with golf, because you can spread out, you can socially distance, you can do things like that. Tennis, there's some sports, even like baseball and stuff, you can spread out. You don't have to be next to each other, except when the guy finally does get on first base and you're trying to get him out,
Yeah.
and a catcher. But, when you're looking at football and those guys are breathing heavy, 2 feet from each other, just sucking in each other's breaths for an extended period of time, a couple hours, that's, it's better to be safe than sorry. And I think if anything, they might move stuff to the spring, to see how this, how it reacts with the flu season that's going to be coming up in a couple months, and go with it. I think a lot of people are pretty much writing 2020 off and looking forward to 21.
MLS is currently trying out their MLS's back tournament in Florida, and I worry about that just because you see the numbers in Florida and how far they're spiking up. I mean, I was pretty happy FC Cincinnati won this morning, but at the same time, it's like, I always worry. I mean, you're in Orlando, Florida, and it worries me on that. Baseball's going to have a go in, how many days is it now? 8? Yeah, or 7 days until first pitch?
Yeah, they're gonna give a small, what is it, 42 games?
60.
42? 60.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're going to do the 40-something between the teams in their division, and then
an extra, what would that be, 18? It'd be
18?
They would play against interleague foes, which that means we only get 4 Cleveland-Cincinnati games, but what can you do?
Yeah.
I mean,
you just got to take what you got.
You were mentioning about the social distancing. The big thing is press rows. You can't really social distance unless you have like this ginormous press box, but most places don't. I mean,
No, they like to cram 42 people in a 38 square foot room and have you go at it.
I mean, when I went to college at Wright State at Alumni Field, the soccer pitch, their old press box could comfortably fit 2. And nowadays they have this brand new press box, which, yeah, you can spread out a little bit, but it gets tough because you have your ESPN Plus set up on the right, and that takes up about half. And then in the other half, you have statistician, you have the scoreboard op, and you have marketing there to make sure everything runs well. Then you have the PA announcer. In a Wright State, that'd be me. So, yeah, it's something that isn't talked about much. I mean, of course, we're worried about the athletes, but also the people that work sports. I mean, I worry about it. I mean, it's my livelihood, and I like to see sports back, but I don't want to see people. I don't want to see people risk their lives for something like this. I mean, I'm kind of stuck in a pickle, is what I'm saying. It's
absolutely.
It's a little bit tough.
Well, that's as you mentioned it, and some people might be like, "Well, you're not playing. What are you doing?" It's like, well, I'm literally talking for hours in a row, and if anybody's near me, it's not necessarily what it will do to you. It's how much of it you get. It's a load variable. The more you are exposed to it, the worse it's going to be for you. So it's like one of those, if you got somebody right next to you and you guys are staring at each other, talking back and forth like we did, one bout, we're there within 2 feet of each other for over 2 hours. So, that's a high transmission factor there, unless we're both wearing masks and kind of looking away from each other so we're not directly blowing on each other, kind of deal. So it really is hard. Now, I would get lucky enough. I could sit at one end of a table and Snarlet, who's Snarlet Fever now, she changed her name.
Oh.
So it's Snarlet Fever, my co-announcer now. She can sit on the other end of the table, and we would be 6 feet apart and be able to do it that way. So we would be okay. But as far as people in the stands, in the seats and stuff, we might be able to do 6 feet kind of deal. But the teams, they're all going to be right next to each other because you're usually limited on, where the teams can sit and stuff. So, yeah, but it's definitely going to be hard on the on like you had just mentioned with the announcers, with the statisticians, you're talking about ESPN Plus. I guess you could say, hey, could you guys not be as good? So then ESPN Plus won't be here. Well, it's getting too good, man. ESPN's coming down. They're going to take up 5 spots.
Well, it's just internal streaming. It's kind of like you stream to the platform, so it's kind of like just Wright State's own equipment. Another point is, like I mentioned, I don't want unnecessarily riskiness, but I kind of want high school football back so I can broadcast that. I mean,
absolutely.
At Loveland High School, where the broadcasters aren't 6 feet apart, and that'd be very difficult just because of all the equipment we would have. But yeah, I worry more about the folks in the press box, and that's I shouldn't say I worry more about that. I just mean social distancing and press rows is pretty much impossible.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all jammed in there. I mean, we see it. If you've ever been to a high school game, you look up, it's that little teeny box and there's 8 or 9 people all straight across it. It's filled, and it's hard to move around even in them because it's not like they're super deep or anything, Yeah,
I can mention a couple of press boxes I think would be okay. I mean, Welcome Stadium where Dayton City League plays. That's got plenty of room. Kings High School. Centerville, yeah.
Pretty good.
That would be okay. I think that'd be possible. Kings, I was there with Loveland last year. That's a pretty big box. Trying to think what else I can bring to the conversation here. Withrow really didn't have a press box. You ever been to Withrow's football stadium?
No, I haven't. Huh?
It's really nice. It looks like an old university field. Concrete seating. It's really nice, and I'm a little sad that we don't get to play Withrow anymore. But Yeah, that's my whole point is I hope sports are back, but I don't know.
Be safe. It's a year, you know.
Yeah.
If things go well, the more we learn about it and stuff like that, and the better we can. Again, it's better to be preventative than to be reactive. You know, better to be proactive than reactive. You know, kind of deal. We'll make it. You know, I'll find something to talk about. If I have to look at the birds that fly in and see which one comes in first and who's going to get to the berry, you know, crazy cardinal.
I like that idea. Now, continuing with that last question, with roller derby, with Gem City roller derby, there is a competitive season, but there's also a recreational season, which I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if any other team has that, but do you see that returning? Because that's normally, what is that, September to about February?
Yeah, they usually have, they'll have 4 bouts. So it'll be, they'll do it September, October, November, and then have a championship out in December sometimes, you know? So I don't know if that's going to happen because we have to see what the restrictions are for, like they're up at the Skate World of Vandalia. And they were also down by the Sportsplex. I believe it's the Sportsplex down there by Austin Landing.
South Metro. That's my
Metro.
That's my winter home with Centerville and Springboro hockey. And I remember seeing that. It's like, yay! You're all down in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. So I know they do it there. So we'll just have to see how that's going to be for how many people you can have there because. Again, like we talked about earlier, it's run by the skaters. It's skater owned, it's skater driven. So if we can only have a certain amount of people in the stands, you're going to lose a lot of money because you got to rent that place out.
Yep.
So there's a certain amount you have to have in there to even just break even. So,
and it's like that big the big battle in the OHSAA. I mean they live and die by the gate by football. That's the most popular sport, and that brings in the most money. And yeah, I think if football didn't in Ohio, then there's probably no conversation. We'll talk about winter sports, but yeah, it's if you live and die by the gate, then it's going to be very, very tough to
absolutely.
compete.
And football drives those. Football drives the sports in the school anyway. Like you were talking about the live gate there at Centerville, they're pulling in 5,000-6,000 fans, it seems, and when you're looking at $10 a ticket or whatever they're charging, because I definitely know it's jumped up from when I used to pay,
when
a lot of the sport.
When I was in high school, it was $6 at Valley View. I don't know if that's really changed. I think it might have by a couple bucks, but I guess it just really depends on what school you're at.
Right. But like you're saying, I mean, if it's $10 a ticket, they're pulling in 50,000 off the gate. I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. And if you can get 5 or 6, maybe 7 home games, and only play a couple away, you can get lucky like that. I think it's probably 5 and 5 though, isn't it? With high school.
Yeah, you'll see
5 at home, 5 away.
Sometimes you'll see 6 and 4 or 4 and 6, a home and away, but it's normally like that.
Yeah. So you go to $250,000 for your sports program. That's a pretty good thing. And then you got to think concessions and all the other stuff that they're going to bring in. And they have deals with the local pizza companies. That are pizza restaurants and stuff that are around. And you'd hate to see it happen because there's going to be a lot of money just lost locally as well.
Yep.
From that happening too.
Now it's time to get into this topic. You and I have talked a lot. We're not going to argue on that. So about the Anderson Redskins changing the name in Cincinnati. You also probably know about the Washington Redskins retiring the name. Your thoughts on that?
I think it was a long time coming. It should have happened sooner. There's a lot of animals out there that you can name your teams after instead of people. And go ahead. And
I also think there's a lot more people names you can use. I didn't realize I'll be honest, I didn't realize the Redskins name was that offensive, but I never would have known. So
yeah, when you go out and actually do research on it and stuff like that, and you realize I've been calling Washington the Washington racial slurs for a few years now, and people are like, why are you saying that? I'm like, it's what it is. It's like anything, with that, it was not a term of endearment by no means. Yeah. And when Miami University changed their name to the Red Hawks, right?
Yep.
That was a time where any school in Ohio, Miami was a university before Florida was a state.
Yep.
So if they're willing to change their name and to change all that branding, they did it, they did it longer and they were quick to do it. They were ahead of the game, I guess you could say. And for other schools to say, no, we want to keep it, and they kind of claim tradition and things like that, I don't think you can do that, especially if you have, Native Americans that are saying, hey, this is offensive. I think they have the final say.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. If you look at it now, Miami was really ahead of the curve in '97.
Yeah. They're pulling this stuff out there 23 years ahead of their time, in a sense, when it comes to this. And you had, when you talked about the Anderson there, and then finally having to change their name, I was quick to throw. I was like, well, they could be the alligators, they could be the armadillos, they could be the assassins or something.
I don't know if assassins would flow too well with high school sports,
not.
But
I was thinking pro sports maybe.
There's creative names you threw out there.
There's a ton of them that you could just think of, right? Mm-hmm. And how many teams out there use Tiger as their thing, right? We could name off and then you have a lot of them. Now, Warriors might even come into play because of with the way their marketing is or the way their emblem is might fall. They might get in trouble for that too. We'll have to see how that goes down the line. But there are a lot of names that are out there that it's just pick an animal. Nobody's going to be mad if you're a gopher, man. Just do it.
And I still think that there's plenty of people names you can use, like Flyers. That's not going to be
Flyers is fantastic.
That's not offensive.
The Red Tails.
Yeah, I love that.
They brought up. I thought that was an absolute fantastic name for Washington to do for the Tuskegee Airmen and all that stuff. How more fitting or honoring would that be? You want to talk about honoring something? Mm-hmm. That would be a great thing.
Absolutely.
So, they could call themselves the Pigskins, because because they were talked about their offensive line being the Hogs for all those years. And guys are going out with the noses on their faces. And the footballs, used to be called pigskin because it was made with pig bladder a long time ago. Do that. Be the Pigskins.
I've seen a couple articles, or I saw a couple articles that are saying Washington's more than likely picking the Warriors. I'm like, well...
You're going from one thing to another.
Yeah, it's just with this wave of change, do you see that, other Native American names kind of going by the wayside, or?
Well, Cleveland's looking at changing their name. The Cleveland Indians, they're looking at changing that. I believe the Chicago Blackhawks actually got permission from the Blackhawk tribe, the Blackhawk tribe members, in order to have that name.
Yep.
So that was another thing too that I had always said. If you were naming yourselves like the Fighting Sioux or something like that, whatever it is, if you had their blessing, if they said yes, we're okay with this, by all means use our name. The Iroquois, whatever they wanted, Blackfoot, there's that was I believe they were in Ohio at the time. So you have all these different names that you could do. If you had permission from those specific people, you might be able to, but there's so many other things you could name your team. Why even tap dance around that? Step completely away from that and go for something that is, I guess, unoffensive as possible.
use that I like, the Peoria Chiefs, they play the Dayton Dragons once a year. It used to be an Indian style logo, but nowadays it's a fire chief. It's Dalmatian.
Perfect.
Oh, it's great. I will say the logo looks a little Paw Patrol-ish, but at the same time, it's really cool. I mean, there's other ways you can use some of these names too. It doesn't all have to be, offensive to Native Americans.
Correct. Yeah, if you change it around, if you get it to, if you do that with the marketing and everything, and change your marketing and all of that, and have a different perception of it, absolutely.
There is one name I hope Anderson considers. It's from another school that since merged, the Barons. It used to be the Amelia Barons, and I love that name. But then they merged with Glen Estee and the Trojans, and they became the West Claremont Wolves. I was like, I mean, that's fine and all, but it's just the Barons. That's a rare name.
Solid. Yeah, and there's not a lot. There's not a lot of them.
And
team names.
And I don't know if Anderson would ever consider that, but that's something that I secretly hope for. But yeah, I wonder how this tide will change things. I mean, I'm all for change, and I think it's well overdue too. But Redskins name, that's if that's offensive to Native Americans and the tribes, then no, don't use it. But do you continue on and say Warriors is bad, or Indians? Carlisle, I know, is the Indians. There's the Wayne Warriors, Northwestern and Springfield, Cedarville, also the Indians. There's a ton of names. There's also a few other schools that share the name with Anderson. I know Fort Loramie said they're not touching the name. St. Henry, and I knew it. Wapakoneta. So, yeah, there's. I have to start digging and thinking of all these schools. Is like, it's.
Well, look at the time when they got their names. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
1920s, 1910. It's not 1920 anymore.
Yeah, it's 2020.
Changed. It's 2020. Let's get with the times. I know you endeared yourself to this name, but at the same time recognize that it originated as a legit slur when we're talking about the red, and it's like, just, you've got to remarket stuff, but also you're going to sell a whole bunch of new stuff as well. So if you're looking at trying to help your bottom line in a sense, especially during this time, people will buy the new stuff. So you're going to get that revenue in to maybe help out your teams and stuff. I know that sounds a little shallow, but at the same time, if that is enough to motivate them to change that name, so they no longer have that oppressive name, then do that. That you're actually doing something good and getting helped out on the back end too. People aren't saying, hey, we know you purposely are doing this for this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. As it stands right now, they have an opportunity to change the name, to alter their logo, things like that. And everybody will go, that's awesome. If you don't do it now, and 10 years from now, people are going, why do you still have this name? You see what I mean? Now it starts coming into, hey, we have all this information. People have all said this. This is not a good thing. Why would you continue to put this out there?
I can't say, that I'm, it's a conversation that's interesting to me, and I definitely think it needed to happen, and I like to think as a human race we are starting to get more enlightened, if that's a proper term on that. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, Anderson's said that, we're definitely retiring the name, but I don't know what their timeline is. I know Washington's I think they're looking at a new identity by first kick of 2020, or kickoff even.
Yeah, they want it by September.
I mean,
and There's a guy that has went out and patented
I saw
all
that.
those names, and he's made the merchandise, which is something you have to do. You can't just hoard the names. You have to be actively promoting it or whatever it is. So he spent thousands and thousands of dollars of his own money because he wanted to have that name for when they actually did change. And he said, when I was reading the article, he talked about he did it so that nobody else would get the name and try to extort it. You know, he said he'll give it to them for free. They just got to come to him and talk to him about it. You know,
I don't know if I read through the whole thing because I thought he was just sitting on it so he can make a pretty coin. But there was one guy, definitely, like you said, he sat on a name and you said, you know, if Washington wants it, I'll give it to him. So, but if you're sitting on a name just so you can make a lot of coin, that's I don't know. I don't think
it's a rough move, right? But that's the way our unfortunately that's our capitalistic society. So he's trying to make some money off of it because he recognized, hey, this is a racial slur. Maybe they're going to have to change their name eventually. And he had the wherewithal to go out and do it when the Redskins could have done that, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago. You know, they could have trademarked a whole bunch of names, you know, if it was ever to come to.
You know, I was, what was I about to say? It was something, it was a great thought, and it was like, So that's excellent. Oh, yeah, that was a great argument we had. A lot of fighting and everything. But now let's wrap up episode 170. Dominic, what are some of your favorite things about sports around Dayton, Ohio?
Some of my favorites is how many there are that you can go and see. I mean, we talked about, you know, the soccer is really close with that. You can see there are so many colleges with Dayton, with Wright State, and all of them that are so close. So you can see any of the sports that you want. You can see excellent basketball. You can see great baseball, football, you know, all of that with and all the clubs that are around here that if somebody really wanted to delve into with Wright State with their football club, with the rugby and things like that. You know, a lot of people don't think of those sports as being around, and Dayton has them. There really isn't a sport that you can think of that Dayton doesn't have at some point in time during the year. You know, there's boxing fights, amateur boxing fights that happen at Memorial Hall a couple times a year that you get to see and really, really enjoy. There's some local fitness things that happen, you know, in Dayton at Montgomery County Fairgrounds, stuff like that, where you can go and see any and all types of sports to see what really kind of gets you going, gets you excited, what you really like to see and able to do, you know, as we mentioned, the sport I'm in with Derby. I mean, I think it's an absolutely fantastic sport. It's a sport, you know, you can watch, and the athletes are playing well into their 40s. So if you started watching somebody that just started at 20, you could watch their entire career, and we're talking 20 years. You know, so just like a great baseball player, you just see them all the time. You know, the baseball, oh, wow. I mean, anything and everything with Dayton, you know, that's what's so exciting. And, you know, in a sense, you can almost lump in, I don't want to lump in anything, but when you talk with Cincinnati being really close with theirs, they got probably one of the most preeminent, their soccer teams that they have, their fan following already, and they've only been around a couple years, is absolutely fantastic. And we touched on the Dayton Dragons and how amazing their fans are. When I went and saw a Dayton Flyers game, I was like, oh, wow, you've really stepped up to the big time. If you haven't seen a Dayton Flyers basketball game, that is a must-see ticket if you can get a ticket to go see, you know. And I couldn't think of anything negative about the Dayton sports scene, except maybe you want to see more, but there's so much to see if you just open up the paper, if you still get the paper, or look on, what's going on in Dayton, this week. You can pretty much find an event, a sporting event that might interest you.
There's something for everyone here.
Exactly. That was my, one of the things I really enjoyed about it. You could look, maybe it's lacrosse, maybe it's, any of the sports that you really wanted to see. There's such a diverse amount of sports here. You're not just stuck with football, baseball, basketball. There's so many others that you can turn to and check out and see if maybe that's what you love.
And really, and Southwest Ohio, and namely Dayton, it's all competitive. I mean, all the teams are strong in one sport or another, or even more. That's what's awesome to me. It's just it's a hotbed of great sports around here.
Yeah, there's you don't have to go back going, wow, that wasn't that good. You're not going to have that letdown.
Yeah.
You're going to see top quality stuff. I mean, Wright State basketball now, men's basketball. Wow, you would have to be out of your mind not to go and want to see one of those games now.
Yeah.
I've never understood why they're not selling out the Nutter Center, when they're having those games there, or, when they're playing and everything. I mean, it's the quality of basketball that they're having, the way they're getting ranked now, and they're multiple 20-win seasons in a row, which I think is the staple for a basketball team when they're getting really good. They're winning more than 20 games or more. They're always shooting for 20, because you might get the call from the dance,
One of the big things I hear about when people talk about Wright State basketball is there's nowhere to park. But I think there was an event in the 90s where, a firing or two happened, and then that ticked off a lot of the fan base, and it hasn't fully recovered like that, but still, I mean, Wright State constantly leads the Horizon League in terms of attendance. So,
and baseball getting nationally ranked. They've had some amazing teams. You're the announcer for them too, right?
Yeah, I do. I do some games. I split my time between UD and Wright State, which, UD's getting up there in baseball. Coach King's done a nice job, but Wright State, I mean,
well, that was the thing. I was starting to look, and I'm like, how many things can Lee actually announce? How much time does he possibly have? And is there a spot where I can slide in? Because he can't do them all.
Well, I'll have to try to send you a contact email just in case, because I mentioned I announced at UD and Wright State, and UD hired me first, like 2 years before I started working back at Wright State. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't guarantee anything, but I could,
No, I wouldn't. No, I'm not looking for anything. You know what I mean? But it's one of those where, it's like good quality announcing. When it combines with a good quality product, I mean, it just makes the experience. It makes everything else there better, and it's something that you want to go and you want to see again.
Definitely. I mean, and it's not just basketball and baseball that are good. I mean, both Dayton and Wright State have great soccer teams, and it's a lot of fun seeing them at Beaujon and alumni. And before Wright State canned the softball program about a month ago now. They were pretty good. They were getting there. I mean, very young last year, but I think they could have handled the Horizon League quite well. I mean, UD's good as well. It's going back to the whole point again, there's something for everyone, and it's competitive here.
Yes. Yes, you're going to see top quality stuff, and you're not going to have to mortgage your house to go see it either.
Absolutely.
That's what I love about it.
I mean, UD, outside men's basketball, women's basketball, and trying to think if they charge for anything else. I don't think they do. Everything is free. You just walk in and enjoy a good product. Wright State, can't say how much men's basketball tickets are because I don't know off the top of my head, but everything's about $5. Or if you're a student, you just walk in, show your Wright One card that you get, and it's free. I mean,
I totally missed out on that. I've got 2 degrees from Wright State.
You don't?
And I well, I didn't start going there until I was in my 30s. So, life and jobs and stuff kept you away. And then people are like, dude, you could go to every basketball game for free. You just have to show them your ID, the right one. And I was like, oh, I should have took advantage of that. Now I really wish I could take advantage of it because the teams now are so much better.
Yeah.
They're so good.
I mean,
they're so awesome.
There's not really a bad sport at Wright State. I mean, I can't really think of any of them. I mean, they're all good.
Yeah, and now, I mean, with the coronavirus aside, with Wright State being able to have their football club start, because they had that little thing that Ohio State made them not be able to have a football team for at least 50 years or something like that. And then once it was done, then they were able to have a club team. And then they could have a club team for a certain amount of years. And after that, then they could get a football team, a legit football team. So that is something, that they, people are always wondering why Wright State never had a football team. Well, it wasn't, because they couldn't. Well, it wasn't because they didn't want to. It was that they couldn't because of the deal that they had with Ohio State.
I've heard a lot of stories about why Wright State doesn't have football. I heard that Irvin J. Nutter didn't want football when he put in the money for the Nutter Center. I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you the stories about being on that first group to get football at Wright State. And I was pretty much the media liaison, just because I was at the college radio station. Pretty much, if I wasn't at a sporting event, I'm at the radio station. But I can tell you the stories of getting that off the ground. And our first spring game at Wayne, we took on the Ohio Valley Warriors, I think they were at the time. And then we moved to... Did we go to Bellbrook after Wayne? I think we did. But then we have our own rec football field now, which is awesome. Yeah. It's on campus. And
slowly but surely.
I hope one day the hockey team can come back because they did win a national championship the year before I started there. But, yeah, it's, we have great sports here. Now, let me ask a follow-up question. What would you like to see in the future for sports and media in Dayton, Ohio?
Well, with sports, I would like to see, obviously I would love to see another arena football team back.
Me too.
We talked about an actual, bring back the professional hockey to Dayton. We need another center type sports complex for us to really be able to bring all that back in. And as far as like the media, I would like to see a little more, coverage, and it's starting to happen on the, I don't want to say niche sports, but sports that don't get as much publicity. Obviously, I'm going to be highly partial to Derby, and I would love to see roller derby, a little better accepted / promoted with the Dayton area. Like I said, we're 69th in the world and one of the top teams in the world. And if you had something like that, you think you would want to expound on that a little bit, kind of get it out there. Hey, and by the way, we just happen to have the Gem City Roller Derby, and they're doing amazing stuff as much as they would want to promote, not maybe, with the Dayton Flyers, with the Wright States and stuff like that. And so with media, maybe look at the smaller stuff to get it out there a little bit more, other than just the, hey, this is what's happening in Dayton this week kind of stuff. Give people a little more of a knowledge of it, that history stuff. When you read the paper, you're always getting updates on any of the college teams or the baseball teams or, the bigger stuff like that. But, let's get even more local with that. That's all I'd really. It's still great coverage that's happening. I would just like to see more of it.
When I talked to Mike Hartsock, I didn't realize that Channel 7 only had one sports guy, and that was him. And I can remember a time in the 90s where on the interview I had with him, he said he had 5 people. And I remember there was at least 2 others that did other sports at the time. It's just, it's crazy to me to think that, that's happened, especially at arguably the biggest TV station in Dayton. And that makes me sad. But yeah, I want more local sports covered. And, I definitely hope that there's more local sports radio to be had as well. That's one thing. That's the main reason why I started this podcast, to prove A, I can do that, and B, there are local sports.
There are local sports.
For those that want to become part of a roller derby family or want to become an announcer as yourself, what advice can you share?
Advice, contact them. If you've got passion for it and it's something that you really want to get involved, you're like, I want to do something that, can help with the community, as, Gem City does a lot of charity events and things like that for people, get a hold of them. Go to gemcityrollerderby.com. Get on there. They've got links that you can click on to volunteer or to join or any of that if you want to become an official. Or if you just want to say, hey, I would like to come out and learn about this and see how that is, to get the experience and see if that's something you might want to do, by all means, contact them, get it done. You can look me up on Facebook, the Big Ragu fan page. Find me on there. You can shoot me a thing and I will get in touch with you if maybe you wanted to do an announcing thing with me or something like that. If you... any of those kind of things, really would be the steps you'd want to take.
And for my last question of the episode, how can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, they can go. I'm at Big Ragu Boxing on Twitter. I have the Big Ragu on YouTube, and the Big Ragu fan page on Facebook is where I'm at there.
Man, I hope one day I get my own fan page. That would be great. But Dominic, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great interview. Thank you for your time. Almost reaching 2 hours, but
almost.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you for having me on.
Not a problem.
Looking forward to hearing you on your season 4.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. Wow, I've been doing this podcast for 4 years. And, stay tuned for news about the live stream that Wednesday. But that will do it for episode 170 of the Cincinnati Dayton Sports Podcast. Dominic, again, thank you for your time. And we'll talk to you again for episode 171. For listening to another episode of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast with Lee W. Mowen. To subscribe to this podcast, please visit theleewmowen.com, spelled TheLeewmowen.com, then click on Podcast. From there, you can find your favorite way to catch new episodes of this podcast, such as on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, the iHeartRadio app, Pandora, and many more platforms. Follow along on social media by liking the Facebook page, the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, and follow along on Twitter at CindayPod and the Lee W. Mowen. Feel free to send in future questions for Mowen's Mailbag on Twitter or Facebook. The closing theme was created with the Splash app, available for free on Google Play and the App Store. This is Lee W. Mowen signing off. Let's talk local Cincinnati and Dayton sports again on the next episode.